Veil of Intentions by Shimon. The cold, crisp air of Washington, D.C. nipped at Tonja Coleman's exposed skin as she adjusted her collar and glanced around the shadowy alley. A fierce storm was brewing in the city, one that mirrored the turmoil in her heart. As an FBI agent, she was used to danger, but tonight felt different. A sharp voice pierced the darkened night, a warning echoing off the brick walls behind her. Enzo Arnaud emerged from the shadows, his intensity sparkling like starlight amidst the urban gloom. He was her partner, her confidant, and yet a puzzle she could never fully solve. Suddenly, a jarring blast shatters the quiet night. Tanja's instincts kicked in as adrenaline surged through her, strength coiling within her muscles. She could feel the presence of the killer, the vivid memories of the victim still fresh in her mind. But this time, it was personal. They were now embroiled in a dangerous game of cat and mouse with a crime syndicate that would stop at nothing to silence them. The smell of impending chaos filled the air, and Tanja's heart raced. Little did she know, every choice she made would not only determine their survival, but would draw the line between love and betrayal. The real engagement began with a contract neither expected. Scene 1. Awakening Power. The parking garage lay cloaked in shadows, the fluorescent lights flickering overhead. A distant echo of the city hummed like an uninvited guest, stirring unease. How can you be sure they're not just feeding you false intel? Enzo Arnaud leaned against the sleek black sedan, arms crossed and brow furrowed. His voice was steady but laced with an undercurrent of urgency. He scrutinized Tonja Coleman, his partner, as if the answer was written somewhere in the depths of her deep brown eyes. Tanja's fingers brushed the cool metal of the car door, her jaw clenched. She remained silent, a tumultuous blend of determination and doubt raging within. It was her first day at the FBI field office, and she was already at the brink of unraveling secrets that might not be meant to be uncovered. A flicker of a vision squeezed through her consciousness, fleeting yet vivid. The ghost of pain in the eyes of a murder victim, their screams echoing, muffled by the weight of years unspoken. Tonja? Enzo's voice cut into her thoughts, drawing her focus back to the present. His gaze held a weight that both grounded her and ignited a spark of confusion. If this leads to something dangerous, dangerous, she echoed, her voice sharper than intended. The air between them thickened, charged with something unspoken. Do you think I joined the FBI to play it safe? He stepped closer, within inches, the heat radiating from his body contrasting with the chill around them. It's not about safety. It's about knowing when to call it. You're not just any agent. He paused, a flicker of something fleeting in his eyes that stirred her unrelenting resolve. You have enemies, and I won't let you walk into a trap. Then don't, she countered, folding her arms, her instinct to shove her feelings down, keep them under wraps. I can handle this. In that towering stance, Tonja felt a rush of power course through her. The very thought of her abilities awakening gritty and raw formed a knot in her stomach. The trauma and turmoil waited there, hidden beneath her calm facade. She couldn't afford to falter now, not with Enzo at her side, not with this case looming grimly over their heads. Suddenly, she caught a flicker of movement from the corner of her eye. A figure loomed at the edge of the garage, cloaked in darkness. The intruder's presence sent a shiver down her spine. Instinctively, she squared her shoulders, readying herself. Enzo, stay back, she whispered, shifting her weight to prepare for anything. Enzo's expression darkened. You don't know what you're dealing with. I can't let you face this alone. But she could feel it, the pull of her psychic intuition, a pressure amplifying in her chest, igniting every nerve ending. Through sheer force of will, she summoned the power of her abilities, focusing on the figure lurking just beyond their reach. She stepped forward, heart racing, entranced by an unseen connection that transcended fear. No, don't. Wait. A shot rang out through the garage, reverberating harshly against the cold cement walls. Time slowed as Tanja's senses exploded in vivid clarity. She saw the barrel of the gun, the glint of metal, heard the shock of a heartbeat echoing like a drum in her ears. Without thinking, she lunged, blurring forward as all her training kicked in, her instincts taking over. She grabbed Enzo's arm and pulled him sideways, just as bullets whizzed past them, the freezing air suddenly alive with chaos. Run, Now, she shouted, adrenaline surging through every fiber of her being. Every skill honed during training fired in unison, her body moving faster than she ever thought possible. Together, they dashed down the row of cars, the world narrowing to just the two of them. Tonja could feel Enzo's arm brush against hers, the force of their run driving them closer, an unyielding certainty in the chaos. As they ducked behind a pillar, both breathing heavily, Enzo fixed her with an intense gaze. What was that? My power. It's increasing, she replied breathily, feeling the truth colliding with disbelief in her heart. And it's so much harder to control. He nodded slowly, understanding and concern mingling in his deep-set eyes. Then you need to trust yourself. In that moment, as their eyes locked, the air crackled with a different kind of tension, much deeper than the rush of adrenaline or chaos around them. It was the realization of possibility. Tonja, he said softly, but before he could finish, the figure emerged from the shadows, gun drawn once more, the script of their reality poised to flip yet again. Whatever happens, Tonja breathed, steeling herself, I'll handle it. And there, amid the storm, the true nature of her burgeoning power began to awaken. Scene 2, meet Enzo. The hum of fluorescent lights flickered above the training room, casting a sterile glow across rows of tactical equipment and training dummies. The air was thick with the scent of sweat and determination. Laughter and muffled conversations melded into a low murmur, forming an electric atmosphere that charged the space with anticipation. Tonja Coleman, well known for her athleticism and the resolute gaze she typically wore, adjusted her stance behind a training dummy, her heart racing as adrenaline coursed through her veins. She looked over her shoulder, catching sight of Enzo Arnaud, her new partner. He was perched casually against the wall, arms crossed, his dark mop of hair tousled just enough to seem effortlessly charming rather than disheveled. "What's your plan when I eventually take you down?" Tonja shot back, her lips curling into a teasing smirk. Her eyes sparkled, full of mischief, as she weighed the options of their impending exercise. Enzo raised an eyebrow, the corners of his mouth twitching with amusement. "Terrific. I await my downfall with bated breath," he replied, his voice smooth like honey yet underscored with a subtle determination. The silence stretched for just a beat longer than needed, but the tension hung thick in the air, crackling softly around them. "Enough chit-chat," barked Special Agent Grayson, their instructor, slicing through the banter with a penetrating glare. "Time to step up. You two are on a simulated hostage retrieval. Remember, it's not just about strength. Strategy wins the day." The room shifted, gears clicking into place as agents positioned themselves ready for action. Tonja felt her pulse quicken. The challenge ignited her competitive spirit. Enzo, however, shifted into focus, his demeanor transforming from playful to intense. He stepped into the designated area, eyeing the layout with assessing precision. "Stay close, follow my lead," Enzo said, his voice low enough just for her ears. The confidence seeped into his words, washing over her like a wave, leaving an imprint of trust and unfamiliar warmth. "Just don't slow me down, all right?" Tonja countered, a playful smile slicing through the determination. They moved as one, embodying the fluidity of a well-rehearsed dance. As they approached the first obstacle, an oversized plush chair designed to simulate a barricade, Tonja instinctively took point, vaulting over it with practiced ease, while Enzo followed close behind, his body moving in tandem with hers. The scent of fresh leather marked the chair, mixing oddly with the sharp tang of bleach from the cleaning supplies. Once past the barricade, they ducked low, weaving through scattered obstacles, calculated maneuvers flowing seamlessly. The tension between them danced in the air, a push and pull of mutual respect, sparked by the thrill of the exercise, igniting something deeper within. Rounding a corner, they found the hostage, a seasoned agent, bound and gagged in a faux hostage situation. Tonja's mind raced, recalling techniques and strategies, her senses brimming. She felt one more heartbeat, their own syncopated thrum as they prepared to execute their plan. "Enzo, you go right, I'll distract," she began, but he cut her off, a magnetic pull to his resolve. "No, I'll take the right flank. You'll need the high ground. Just trust me." A flicker of surprise flashed in Tonja's eyes. She met his gaze, and an unspoken understanding nullified any hesitation. Enzo's dark features were sharp in the lights, but it wasn't just his looks. It was the earnestness captured in the depths of his eyes that made her heart skip. "All right, then," she conceded, feeling a rush of excitement. He didn't need to spell it out. They would do this together. A harmonious blend of instinct and intellect guided their partnership. As they crept toward the bound agent, their movements synchronized perfectly. The world outside faded. It was just them, their breaths mingling, the silent understanding pulsating through the air. Tonja couldn't shake the gravitational pull she felt toward him, a readiness underlined by unacknowledged emotions. The moment was interrupted when the captor, a burly agent with a sense of humor too sharp for his demeanor, launched a surprise attack, sending both agents sprawling as he played the role of an unpredictable foe. They landed with a thud, but before Tonja could process, Enzo had her back, pushing her aside and rolling to counter. The training room erupted into chaotic laughter and shouts, but all Tonja could focus on was Enzo's unwavering confidence and the warmth of his presence surrounding her like a protective cloak. With the laughter echoing around them, she found herself smirking, a realization washing over her amid the laughter. This man, this partner, might just be the camaraderie that changed everything. "Next time, watch my back, not just your own," Tonja teased, calling over the commotion, her voice spirited. Enzo chuckled, brushing himself off with a flare. "No promises, but you'll see I'm not all charm and flash." He flashed a grin, layering the invitation with an unspoken assurance that wouldn't soon dissipate. As the chaos wound down, both partners shared a glance, a brief pulse of connection that sent a response through them, one that hinted that their professional lives might vault into something greater. "Ready for round two?" Tonja asked, her voice thick with a blend of challenge and camaraderie. "I was born ready," Enzo replied, a conspiratorial glint in his eye, setting them on a course that felt destined, yet unpredictable, into the thrilling unknown. Scene 3. First Vision. The fluorescent lights flickered inside the small windowless office at Quantico, creating a dull hum that mirrored Tonja Coleman's sky-high anxiety. Stacks of case files littered her desk, overwhelming her with whispers of forgotten tragedies. The walls, barely visible under layers of pinned photographs and clippings, echoed the souls of victims begging for justice, their unsolved cases hanging like heavy clouds over her thoughts. In this sanctuary of shadows, the air felt thick, charged, almost electric, a telltale sign her abilities were surfacing. Across from her, the clock ticked rhythmically, a steady heartbeat against the oppressive quietude, until the door swung open with a soft creak, revealing Enzo Arnaud, tall and magnetic, even in a casual black button-up. His warm brown eyes seemed to sense the tension in the room. "Hey, you've been at it all day," Enzo said, leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed casually. "I brought you coffee. It's the dark roast you love." The aroma enveloped Tonja, momentarily grounding her frayed nerves. Sliding a hand through her loosely tied hair, she attempted a smile. "I appreciate it. Just lost in thought," she replied. The wariness in her voice betrayed her attempt at lightness. Lost in thought, or lost in the weight of the world? His tone was gently teasing, a counterbalance to the serious atmosphere. "Maybe a little bit of both," she sighed, contemplating the cold case file before her. The name, Dahlia Evans, haunted her like an echo. Missing for years, only to turn up dead in a forgotten alley. This one just sticks with me. I can't figure out why. Dahlia Evans? Enzo stepped closer, dropping the coffee on the desk with a soft thud. "You know the case isn't open anymore. Maybe it's time to just drop it?" Tonja snapped, the words jarring both of them in the charge-filled air. It felt like a betrayal to the victim whose story was left untold. The emotional weight was suffocating, and she turned back to the file defiantly. Before he could respond, Tonja's instincts kicked in, her breath hitching as a sharp vision pierced the depths of her mind. The cold air around her morphed, thickening until the world around her dissolved. She found herself in an alley, narrowed and shadowy. The scent of damp concrete and earthy rot invaded her senses, an unsettling blend that instantly anchored her to the scene. She could see a figure blurred and obscured, but she felt the man's rage like a seismic tremor, palpable and primal. The grip of an unseen hand encircled her wrist, rough and unyielding. A scream erupted from her throat, muffled by the silence that enveloped the vision. Blood painted her surroundings, the warmth contrasting sharply with the chill in her bones. She was the victim. Just as suddenly as the vision began, clarity enveloped her. She gasped, jerking back against her desk, heart racing furiously. The ambient noise of the office flooded back, and she blinked rapidly, trying to disengage from the horrifying glimpse. Enzo was right in front of her, concern etched across his handsome features. His hands instinctively reached for her shoulders, grounding her. "Tonja, what happened?" His voice was a steady anchor, firm yet gentle. "I." She struggled to find the words, still reeling from the sights and sensations that bombarded her. "I saw it, Dahlia. I was there." "What did you see?" Enzo urged, his voice low and unwavering despite the urgency. It was her moment of truth. The emotional crescendo of their partnership surged around them, fluttering like the wings of trapped birds. "It was brutal," she whispered. "She didn't just die, she suffered." Her eyes darted to the coffee untouched on the desk, the reality of their work snapping back into focus. "I need to solve this, Enzo. She deserves justice." Silent tension filled the room, heavy yet charged with the undeclared emotions thrumming beneath the surface. He met her gaze, an unspoken promise flickering like embers. "Together," he nodded, determination reflected in his eyes. "We'll find out who did this. Together." As the interwoven threads of their connection crackled in the charged silence, the office felt less like a tomb for the lost and more like a place of future action. It was in this stark resolve that the first flickers of possibility danced, a flame igniting amid the shadows. "Together," she echoed, her voice firm, holding the weight of not just their mission, but the deeper bond slowly forming beneath the surface of partnership. The ghosts of the past were their only witnesses, and Tanja felt her pulse quicken, knowing the stakes were higher than ever. Scene 4. The case begins. The faint hum of fluorescent lights buzzed like 1,000 concealed secrets in the bustling heart of the FBI's Philadelphia field office. A whiteboard loomed in the corner of Tonja Coleman's small office, cluttered with colorful sticky notes and photographs, each pin representing the life of a victim, now silenced. She stood before it, her tall frame casting a shadow against the wall, the intensity of her focus evident in her meticulously arranged notes. "Tonja," Enzo Arnaud called from the doorway, his deep voice swirling through the air like a wisp of smoke. "Ready to dive into this disaster?" Without turning, Tonja took a deep breath, her bright hazel eyes still tracing the details of the latest murder. A young woman, propped unnaturally against an alley wall, the remnants of a crime scene lingering in her mind. "Only if we find something beyond the usual chaos," she replied, her voice steady, yet laced with the weight of gravity. Enzo stepped inside, his presence an anchoring force. He surveyed the board, wrinkling his brow in thought. "I can't believe the city is reeling like this. Too many bodies piling up. It feels like we're in a horror movie." Tonja turned, their eyes locking in a silent exchange. The world outside faded into a dull roar, their shared understanding igniting an electric pulse between them. She could hear the distant chatter of agents stirring through the office, the swish of papers, and the muted sound of jovial laughter from the break room. Yet, within the tension, those sounds felt far away. "They say she was involved with someone dangerous," Tonja said, shifting the conversation back to the case. "Her friends think she was trying to escape. But from what? Who's pulling the strings?" Enzo crossed his arms, the fabric of his crisp shirt straining slightly against his muscular build. "Whatever it is, it's got this city spooked. And spooked people make mistakes. Or they go missing," Tonja murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. The weight of what they might uncover settled like lead in her stomach. The silence echoed, heavy with unspoken fears and aspirations that hovered just beneath the surface. She turned back to the board, tapping a photograph of the victim with her pen. A flicker of intention surfaced in her mind, a vision creeping in, a hint of what transpired in those final moments. "Better call Rosie. She may know the right crowd to investigate," Enzo suggested, stepping closer, his arm brushing against hers. The contact sent a whispered message through her, and though she channeled her focus back to the case, the warmth lingered. "Yeah, she knows everyone," Tonja replied, her voice softer now, smudging the edges of their intense partnership. "But let's tread lightly. We don't want to spook whoever's in charge here." The door swung open again, revealing Rosie Santana, Tonja's vivacious best friend and partner in crime. "Did someone say trouble?" Because I just got off the phone with a guy who knows things, ulterior motives and all, she pronounced, a half smirk illuminating her face. Is that so? Enzo leaned against the desk, his interest piqued. Spill the beans, Rosie. Rosie's laughter was musical, racing through the otherwise seriousness of the office. Let me paint a picture for you, rich kid, bad attitude, and a membership at Mischief for Young Adults University. They throw wild parties that could drown a horse in secrets. Tonja chuckled softly, shaking her head. You've got a way with words, Rosie. Just call it a gift, Rosie winked. I say we crash the next one. Who knows what we might find in between the champagne flutes and whispered lies. Not a bad idea, Enzo considered, the corners of his mouth lifting ever so slightly. But we need to have a plan. And a backup plan, Rosie added. And a pizza. You can't go crashing parties on an empty stomach, right? Tonja smiled, warmth sliding through the cracks in her determination. I think we can manage that. As laughter twisted through the air again, the weight of their purpose coiled just beneath the surface, like a current ready to breach the dam of complacency. Outside, the city thrummed with unease, but here, Tonja felt a flicker of strength rising. They were not just agents, they were protectors, surging against darkness with every fiber of their beings. We'll wait until nightfall, Tonja said, steeling herself. But first, let's hit the streets and gather some intel. Think they'll even provide us with pizza? Enzo shot back, his eyes twinkling with playful defiance. Tonja let the smile bloom fully on her face, a moment of vulnerability sparking through their connection. Only if you find the right culprits. Deal, Enzo said, a soft seriousness weaving through their banter. Together they ventured out, resolutely stepping into the underbelly of a city ready to reveal its secrets. Tension mounted with every echoing footfall, crime and connection intertwining as they delved deeper into their mission. Tonja's heart resonated with the promise of chaos ahead, every beat steady with determined anticipation. Scene 5. Shadow of a Syndicate. Tonja Coleman stared at the kaleidoscope of shattered glass and blood, a silent witness that bore testimony to the life extinguished in the alleyway behind the bar. The air was thick with the coppery scent of copper, mingling unsweetly with the distant noise of a bustling city beyond. She closed her eyes briefly, allowing her mind to sift through the remnants of chaos. Every crime could tell the story, Tonja murmured, her tone barely more than a whisper. She felt Enzo's presence beside her, a sturdy anchor in the storm of her thoughts. Let's hope this one isn't a true horror story, Enzo replied, scanning the dim alley with his sharp gaze, the moonlight illuminating his rugged features. The shadows clung to him, as though afraid to let go. Tonja opened her eyes, heart racing as she stepped closer to the scene. The blood splattered across the brick was like a sinister canvas, and she stepped gingerly through the crimson spray, her instincts sparking to life. It was always the visceral levels of violence that prompted her visions, always initiated by touch. It's all right, Enzo said gently, sensing her hesitation as she approached the spot where the victim had fallen. Just focus on the details. We'll make sense of it. We? Tonja cocked an eyebrow, a faint smile breaking through the tension. She loved how he kept pulling her back into the realm of normalcy, even amid the madness of her abilities. Are you getting psychic powers too? Only when I'm next to you, he quipped back, keeping his tone light as he stepped behind her. His gaze softened as it fell upon Tonja, enchanted not just by her beauty but by her fierce determination. But let's see what secrets this tragedy holds. With a steadying breath, Tonja knelt, palms tracing the ground. Her fingers brushed against the cold, unforgiving concrete. The world around her began to fade, replaced by flickering images, the victim, a young woman full of life and laughter. Tonja felt an overwhelming rush, a tether to the victim's final moments. Please don't leave me, the woman's voice echoed in her mind, sharp and desperate. Tonja gasped, putting her hand to her chest, emotions shifting from horror to sorrow in an instant. She saw shadows flit past, sinister figures obscuring their faces as they advanced, the last terrifying seconds of lucidity before darkness consumed her. Tonja, Enzo's voice sliced through her vision. Stay with me, focus. Staggering back, she shook her head, trying to dispel the haunting images. A chill washed over her, the weight of the vision pressing down like stone. I saw her. They were coming for her. It was too late. Who? Enzo asked, his brows furrowed with concern. Did you see anything, anyone? I saw shadows, but they weren't clear. It's like they were shifting. I only felt the fear. I need to know more. Enzo stepped forward, placing a firm hand on her shoulder. We'll get the security footage from that bar. Someone must have seen something, but we can't stay here too long. The syndicate's presence is thick. Tonja nodded, caught in the whirlwind of their urgency, even as a trace of uncertainty glimmered in her chest. The closer they came to revealing the syndicate's secrets, the more she felt the tightening grip of danger. We need to talk to witnesses. Let's head inside and see if anyone can spill anything. As they turned from the scene, Tonja sensed a slow simmering tension in her partner, something every bit as complex as the case they were cracking. There was a flicker of vulnerability in Enzo's eyes as he glanced away, briefly revealing a crack in his enigmatic armor. She said, forcing a lightness into her voice. I know all this is heavy, but if anyone can handle this, it's you and me, partners. Always, Enzo replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. And beneath the uncertainty, something else shared the space between them, an unspoken understanding, a shared glimpse into their internal struggles that both drew them closer and left them teetering on the edge. As they stepped into the bar, the clamor of laughter and glasses clinking enveloped them, but a deeper silence loomed in the shadows of their shared journey. The case may grow murkier, but the weight of their unarticulated connection was increasingly visible, an undercurrent that both terrified and exhilarated them. Let's see if someone wants to share their secrets tonight, Tonja said, crossing her arms while casting a keen glance across the room, ready to dig into the heart of the matter before the syndicate unraveled their lives. Scene 6. Unexpected discovery. The air felt oppressive beneath the late afternoon sun as Tonja Coleman stepped into the dimly lit archives of the Quantico FBI office. Dust motes twirled lazily in the shafts of light, as if the world outside were oblivious to the storm brewing in the depths of the case she was determined to solve. The fluorescent lights flickered above, each sputtering pulse mirroring her mounting tension. Today, the heat clung to her in a stifling embrace, wrapping around her like an unwelcome blanket, despite the chill weaving through her focus. Another day in paradise, she murmured to herself, allowing a half-smile to cross her lips. She was alone, but the lingering echo of her partner Enzo's wry humor often trailed close behind. If only he were here. He'd lighten this oppressive air with a quip, like always. As she moved deeper into the labyrinth of records, the smell of old paper mixed with stale coffee enveloped her. She flipped through file after file, each one heavy with the weight of unsolved cases. Something stirred in her, a deeper pull urging her to dig further. A series of low murmurs broke her concentration, voices just beyond her reach, distorted yet familiar enough to string her heartbeat into a ricochet of anticipation. Did you hear what happened to Beckett? One voice intoned, echoing down the corridor. No, but I heard there are some serious questions about his connections, another replied, the words thick with conspiratorial tension. Curiosity piqued. Tonja leaned closer to the wall, straining to hear more. She'd crossed paths with Chris Beckett during investigations, a decorated officer with impressive accolades warming his mantle. What could the whispers mean? She bristled at the potential implications. And they still haven't found the body, the first voice continued, now laced with incredulity. You'd think someone like Beckett would know better. Before Tonja could rationalize the gamble, she slipped around the corner and followed the voices, her heart hammering beneath her chest. The closer she drew, the more the conversation settled in the pit of her stomach like a lead weight. All of it leads back to him. If he goes down, we all go down, the second voice stated somberly. He's too powerful to take on, especially since he's got friends in high places. Tonja's instincts kicked into high gear, melding her strength with her dedication. Time to uncover the truths hidden beneath layers of corruption. She checked her surroundings, then gestured to a nearby desk piled high with files. Time for a little detective work, her psychic abilities teasing at the corners of her consciousness, eager to delve deeper. The archive computer flickered to life with a sigh, and she initiated a search on the names she'd just overheard. Loss and betrayal mingled within her, as the screen returned a web of connections, a half dozen active cases intertwined, all eerily linked to Beckett. Job titles shone like neon signs in the dimness of her focus. Each line revealed breadcrumbs leading towards something darker, something that pricked at her anxiety. Just as the revelation began to settle on her shoulders, the sudden creak of the office door disrupted the fragile stillness. "Tonja?" Enzo's voice broke the air, smooth and velvet, instantly calming her fraying nerves. "What are you doing down here? I thought I'd find you at the gym." "Working." Her response had a sharper edge than intended, but uneasy energy crackled like static between them. Enzo stepped fully into the room, a silhouette framed by the harsh lighting of the corridor. His presence always stoked a familiar fire beneath her skin, a warmth juxtaposed against the tension they faced. She met his gaze, searching for the usual playful spark, but found it replaced by a furrowed brow. "You look unsettled. What's going on?" His voice dropped, a cloak of seriousness enveloping him. "I think we've got something, Enzo," she said, motioning toward the computer. "The whispers Beckett, it's bigger. We need to dig into this." "I heard those whispers," Enzo replied, glancing over her shoulder. "You shouldn't be probing too deep. They'll come for you if you get too close." The reminder hung between them like a taut string, yet her determination refused to yield. "I won't back down. This is our chance to nail down those high-powered ties. Then we better tread carefully." Enzo's intent was clear, his protective instincts stirring alive, especially if it involves Beckett. A silence settled as their eyes locked, an unspoken understanding passing between them. That moment, suspended in time, felt electric, vibrant, an undercurrent of deeper emotions swirling beneath the surface. "Tonja," he began, but the words caught before they could break free, a hesitation that left the air thick and brimming. "Let's just focus on the case for now," she offered, redirecting their energy. As they turned back to the screen, the tension between them hung like a whisper, bittersweet and unresolved, while the shadows of danger loomed just beyond their fragile alliance. "What risk are we willing to take?" Enzo's voice was resolute, guiding them deeper into the unfolding drama. "I don't know," Tonja replied, a determined spark igniting within her. "But we're going to find out." Scene 7, Fractured Trust. The air hung heavy with tension as Tonja and Enzo stepped into the dimly lit corridor of the old warehouse, the faint smell of rust and old wood clinging to their clothes. Shadows danced along the peeling walls, illuminating the remnants of a long-abandoned world, a world now compromised by a murderer lurking in every corner. The echoes of their footsteps were swallowed by the pervasive silence, each step amplifying the dread curling in Tonja's gut. "What was that back there?" Tonja's voice sliced through the silence, her focus intense. She clenched her fists at her sides, battling the surge of frustration. The remnants of adrenaline flooded her veins, contrasting sharply with the calming ambience she always sought. Enzo leaned against the cold brick wall, arms crossed, his brow furrowed. "I was following the lead, Tonja. You can't play it safe all the time." His tone was laced with irritation, like a spark ready to ignite. "Play it safe? You put us in danger." "We had them," she shot back, the words spilling out like water from a broken dam. Her striking dark eyes pierced him, demanding accountability. "We could have gotten important intel, and instead, you let them slip away." "Let them slip?" Enzo's voice rose, reverberating off the walls. He uncrossed his arms and stepped closer to her, his expression fierce yet hurt. "I'm not about to take unnecessary risks for a hunch, Tonja. You see glimpses, but I think clearly. There's more at stake than your visions." "More at stake?" she echoed, anger boiling beneath her cool exterior. Her jaw clenched tightly as she stepped forward, closing the distance between them. The air crackled, thick with their unresolved conflicts. "You think I don't know that? You think this isn't hard for me? I'm seeing things that shred my insides, Enzo." The tension hung like a web around them, thick as smoke. Enzo blinked, his dark eyes betraying a flicker of vulnerability. "I know," he said softly, "but can't you try to trust me? My methods work, and throwing caution to the wind isn't how we'll catch this guy." "Trust works both ways," she retorted, her voice nearly a whisper, the force of her emotion binding them in that moment. Tonja looked away, not wanting him to see the hurt that flickered in her gaze, but he reached out, gently cupping her chin to draw her gaze back. Tonja, he began, his voice lower now, smoothing the tension from the edges. It's not just about the case. It affects us. All of this. We don't even know what we are, she interrupted, pulling away, feeling a deep well of confusion rising within her. Each word was a struggle. Her voice wavered between frustration and something warmer. I push too far and you play too safe. What is there to trust? Everything, he breathed, closing the gap again, his presence wrapping around her like a cocoon. The flickering light overhead caught the angles of his face, softening the lines of tension etched there. You have to know I would never risk your safety. You're everything, Tonja. She inhaled sharply, the softness of his words disarming her. Everything? The challenge danced in her eyes, part spat, part plea for clarity. She could feel the charge pulsing between them, a melody only they could hear. Yes, he said, and for a moment they stood in the in-between, a world where words could both harm and heal. Enzo's thumb brushed along her jawline, igniting a spark that whispered of uncharted territories and hesitant steps. Everything implies risks, she murmured, the speed of her heart betraying her resolve. And I might just end up shattering. Or finding strength, he insisted, his gaze unwavering, searching hers as if they were sharing an unspeakable bond. Silence enveloped them, and she could hear the muted thrum of her pulse, each beat echoing an apology they hadn't yet voiced. Tonja felt herself leaning closer, the pull undeniable. Just then, the distant clang of metal broke their moment, a reminder of the chaos still outside. We can figure this out, Enzo offered, retreating slightly, letting the weight of their argument rest for just a heartbeat longer. Together, she finished, a tight breath escaping her lips. The resolve in her heart flared, mingling with the tenderness that lingered. Together, the word hung in the air, threaded with possibilities still cloaked in shadows. Scene 8. Blackmail exposed. The scent of freshly brewed coffee lingered in the air, swirling with the musky aroma of aged leather from the vintage armchairs in the break room at Quantico. Tonja Coleman leaned against the counter, absently swirling a spoon in her cup as she watched Enzo Arnaud pace a small circle in the confined space, a furrow deepening on his brow with every measured step. "Do you want some?" she asked, tilting her cup toward him, the warmth radiating and contrasting with the sudden chill enveloping the room. He stopped mid-stride, eyes narrowing slightly. "Not right now. I'm still trying to process everything." The tension in his shoulders told her that he was grappling with something much heavier than the contents of his morning caffeine fix. "Processing?" she echoed. "Is it the case, the engagement, or both?" Her voice was light, teasing, but she could feel a charged current zipping through the space between them. "Just, people can be complicated, you know?" Enzo replied, running a hand through his dark, tousled hair, staring at the floor as if it could offer him the clarity he desperately sought. "Yeah, and you're one of them," Tonja quipped, stepping closer, the teasing lilt of her voice drawing his gaze back to hers. She offered a small smile, the corners of her mouth lifting with playful bravado. "Look, if it's the fake engagement you're worried about, just remember we're in this together. Nothing's for real until it is," he finished, voice low, filled with unspoken weight. He clenched his jaw, muscles taut, the playfulness of their banter giving way to something deeper and more unsettling. "What isn't real, Enzo?" she pressed, stepping confidently into his orbit, the intimacy of their physical closeness filling the space with palpable heat. "You're acting like you're harboring a secret, and if it affects you, it affects us both." His blue eyes met hers, and for a moment, time itself faltered. The breath in her lungs caught as her heartbeat quickened, emotions swirling into a tempest she was barely able to control. He took a half step forward, closing the gap, and though they were moving towards each other, uncertainty bubbled beneath the surface. "It's not just the case," he murmured, his voice a husky whisper that danced on the air between them. Tonja took in the way his brow furrowed deeper, how the shadow of despair flickered against the warmth of his presence. "There are things going on that I haven't told you, things that could put you in danger if I'm not careful." Danger? Her pulse raced, but it wasn't entirely from fear. There was an electric thrill in discovering the closed-off parts of Enzo. "You should know by now that I can handle myself, just like you can." "Can I?" He shot back, expecting the sudden ferocity in his eyes startled her. "Can I really? Because I'm being blackmailed, Tonja. This engagement, it's meant to protect you. Blackmailed? She blinked, the words slicing through the air like a bullet. By who? What do they want? I can't say. It's complicated, Enzo replied, panic flaring briefly before he masked it with that familiar brooding calm. But I do know that it's affecting my judgment. You deserve better. This isn't how I want you to see me. Tonja stepped closer still, searching his gaze, her heart pounding in rhythm with the urgency of their words. You're not just seeing me, Enzo. You're part of the reason I keep going. Just let me in. We'll figure this out together. At that moment, the world outside the break room faded into a soft hum, their breaths mingling in the charged silence. Her fingers slowly reached up, brushing against his arm, a gentle, grounding touch that stilled the storm of worries swirling in both their minds. Enzo's body tensed under the feather-like contact, but then his muscles relaxed, the heat of her hand igniting warmth deep within him. The magnetic pull between them drew closer, her heart nearly leaping from her chest as he closed the distance between them, their faces mere inches apart. Tonja could see the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes before he leaned in, seeking her lips in a kiss that melted the world away. It was tentative at first, a whisper of a promise, before deepening into something rich and profound, sending sparks in all directions. As he pulled back, breathless, their lingering gazes locked in an electricity that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. With a half-hearted laugh, he murmured against her lips, I guess this means you really are in all the way. A teasing sparkle danced in her eyes. Guess so, but we might need to talk about boundaries later. But as they stood there, the break room around them faded into a blur of shadows, the weight of the world swirling outside, leaving them suspended in that fleeting moment of intimacy, a moment that both drew them closer and pushed them toward a storm they knew was brewing. Scene 9. Deception strikes. The pulsing lights of the club flashed like a heartbeat, vibrant and unpredictable, drowning out the hum of the downtown night. Tonja Coleman adjusted the collar of her leather jacket, the fabric cool against her skin as she leaned closer to Enzo Arnaud. Do you think they'll really show? She asked, her voice barely cutting through the bass-heavy rhythm that thrummed beneath their feet. Enzo, standing a fraction closer than necessary, arched an eyebrow as he scanned the crowd. The atmosphere tingled with energy, but a hint of tension lingered just beneath the surface. If they're as desperate as we think, they won't miss an opportunity. Tonja's brow furrowed, her intuition whispering something ominous about the night. Desperation can lead to rash decisions. He turned slightly, the corner of his lips twitching up in a half-smile. So can good intentions. Her eyes flicked to his, catching a spark of something deeper. The moment hung between them, fragile and electric. Tonja felt a swell of vulnerability. She looked away, pretending to adjust the strap of her bag. Let's focus on the task, she muttered, though her voice betrayed a softness. At that moment, the door swung open with a forceful clatter, and two figures stepped inside. Their eyes scanned the room, devoid of the carefree energy surrounding them. Instinct kicked in, and she tightened her grip on her bag. Enzo, I think. Suddenly, the two figures sprinted toward them, faces obscured by hoods, their intent crystal clear. Move, Enzo shouted, body immediately shifting as he stepped in front of Tonja, instinct driving his protective instinct. In an instant, the bar was alive with chaos. Tonja slid into her role effortlessly. Adrenaline surged as she engaged her psychic abilities, catching a glimpse of the attackers' blurred past through the echoes of their violent intent. She could barely decipher the images, yet a single thread of clarity came through. Pain. Enzo dove to the side, grabbing a stray bar stool and whirling it toward one hooded figure who stumbled back. Keep your head down, he yelled. The surrounding crowd erupted in gasps and screams, forced to choose between fear or an instinctual cheer of defiance. Watch out, Tonja shouted, lunging forward to intercept the second assailant, whose hand shot toward Enzo, knife glinting menacingly under the flashing lights. With a surge of her superhuman strength, she knocked the weapon from his grasp, sending it clattering against the floor. The metallic sound was swallowed by the pandemonium around them. Nice move, Enzo called out, a grin breaking the tension, admiration evident in his voice. Just getting started. Tonja answered, adrenaline coursing through her veins. The first figure lunged again, but this time Tonja saw through the haze, a pit of dread coiling in her stomach. She grabbed the man's wrist, slamming it down on the bar. "Who sent you?" she demanded, her voice fierce. "You'll regret this," he snarled, eyes wild with desperation. But before she could press further, a hard shove from behind sent her stumbling. "Tonja?" Enzo's voice cut through the noise as he barreled into the attacker, muscles straining in a seamless tackle that sent the thug sprawling. The dance floor erupted around them, the crowd bouncing between escape and excitement. Tonja quickly regained her balance, pushing back against the surge of panic. She spotted Rosie Santana in the far corner, waving frantically to the exit. "Get out!" Tonja yelled, but Rosie was rooted in place, concern etched across her face. "Play it safe," Enzo remarked, urgency threading through each word. "Stay close." "Always," she replied, feeling the heat of their combined urgency as her eyes met his for just a heartbeat longer than appropriate. Visceral energy crackled between them, each moment heightening the stakes both externally and within. But the moment shattered when one of the assailants scrambled to his feet, charging toward them with renewed fury. Tanja's instincts kicked in, her wide stance grounded and poised as she achieved focus. She shifted, her speed a flash disarming the thug in a matter of seconds. But there was no time to bask in triumph, as the other attacker regrouped with a more lethal weapon brandished a gun. "Tonja." Enzo's voice rang out, nearly lost in the bedlam, and her heart raced. With a quick glance, she felt a wave of dread wash over her, an impending sense of chaos predicting the coming impact. "Enzo, get back!" she shouted, heart pounding as her body coiled, ready for the fight of their lives. The dance floor around them blurred into insignificance as they stood firm, awaiting the onslaught, their backs pressed together, instincts sharpened. His breath came steady, yet she could sense his heart racing, echoing closer than the club's beat. There were only two options now: surrender to the chaos or embrace the storm, together. "No matter what happens, I've got your back," he said, steel in his voice. And as they prepared, the world faded into sharp contrast, the music a distant thrum, the chaos surrounding them something surreal. Tonja nodded firmly, her voice a whisper, laced with determination. "And I've got yours." Scene 10. Late Night Confessions. The evening air was thick with the smell of freshly cut grass mingling with the subtle sweetness of blooming jasmine. Tonja Coleman leaned against the wooden railing of her balcony, eyes directed at the open sky studded with glittering stars, some small, some large, all unyielding in their watch over the quiet streets of D.C. Below her, the city clattered softly, a world bustling with life, completely unaware of the storm brewing just beneath the surface. Enzo Arnaud stepped outside, shirt sleeves rolled up, revealing the contours of strength that had long fascinated her. He joined her at the balcony, his presence immediately grounding. The coolness of night surrounded them, creating a cocoon where it felt safe to delve into the weighty matters that had been lingering between them. "Did you ever think we'd end up in a fake engagement?" he asked, attempting levity, the corners of his mouth tilting in a half smile, but his eyes clouded, betraying discomfort. Tanja's gaze lingered on the stars before landing on Enzo. "Honestly, no. But here we are, right in the middle of chaos," she replied, her voice soft yet steady. "What about love in chaos?" Enzo countered, leaning forward slightly, intent on unraveling her response. "Do you think we're on the verge of declaring love, or did we just stumble into a melodrama?" She shot back, the uncharacteristic sharpness in her tone nudging at the simmering tension. Enzo's expression shifted. "What if we're both scared that it might just lead somewhere we're not ready for?" Tonja scoffed, shaking her head as she pushed off the railing. "You act like you're trying to protect me from something, but I can handle it. I've been handling it," she insisted, her steps echoing against the wooden floor. Enzo straightened, eyes narrowing slightly. "This isn't just about you, Tonja. You have powers now. You don't need to carry this weight alone." She halted, spinning to face him, searching for answers in his ardent gaze. "Is that what you think? That I'm afraid your blackmail my powers are just sideshows to this engagement we've thrust ourselves into?" He stepped closer, the tension palpable. "How naive do you want to be? If we're to successfully navigate this, we can't pretend it's all face value bliss. His voice dropped an octave, deep and seductive. Pretending? Is that what you think? That I'm pretending? She crossed her arms, defiantly personal in her space, sensing a deeper current beneath their shared struggle. Enzo hesitated, anger simmering beneath the surface. Sometimes it feels like you're keeping me at arm's length. You disclose everything to your dad and Rosie. But me? What do you think I am? Just a partner? His frustration echoed in the tension between them. Perhaps that's exactly what you've always been to me. Tonja shot back, her pulse quickening. I can't risk everything we've built. The silence engulfed them, the city's soft murmurs fading. In that frozen moment, with only the two of them suspended in the chaos of their lives, warmth seeped back in as Enzo reached out, his fingers brushing against hers, igniting a flutter she hadn't anticipated. And what if I wanted more? The vulnerability hung in the air, charged and raw. Tonja breathed out as if noticing for the first time the intimacy of their proximity. The wild pulse of her heart steadied. You think a fake engagement won't yield real feelings? She looked at him, genuinely intrigued. Confusion and danger breed emotions, Tonja, he confessed. I'm not a fool, yet seeing you with someone else drives me mad. His voice dropped, a shadow of vulnerability flickering through. She took a step closer, their fingers now entwined, the weight of the moment heavy yet breathtaking. Enzo, we both have pasts that could unravel us. Those connections we keep hidden. The only connection I want is with you, he interrupted softly, and the universe between them seemed to pulse with possibility. Their eyes locked, and in that instant she saw how profoundly everything around them was woven with uncertainty, but also with undeniable allure. You're not my partner, not right now. A grin broke his guise as he leaned back. Fine, we'll keep it professional then, but don't expect me to stop trying to break through to your other side. Tonja laughed, the sound lifting the weight of the previous moments.